I used to think betrayal came from strangers until it wore my sister's perfume. The day I came home to silence, every door half open, every drawer emptied, I already knew. My husband, Tyler, and my kids were gone. The note on the counter wasn't from him, it was from Caroline. "We're leaving for France. Don't bother calling. You'll never see them again." My knees gave out right there on the kitchen floor. I couldn't afford the international lawyers she mocked me about. My savings were gone, my marriage a grave, and my sister, the one who braided my hair when we were little, had stolen my entire life. When I started selling my childhood home to pay for a case I could never win, I thought I'd already lost everything. Then I found the newspaper clipping in the attic. That was the moment I learned my whole life was a lie. I spent the first week calling every number I could find: his office, her cell, even the French embassy. Nothing. The police labeled it a custody misunderstanding. My lawyer called it internationally complicated. I called it hell. Tyler and I had been married 12 years. We'd built a modest life in St. Paul, a small mortgage, a messy garden, 2 kids who painted the walls with crayons. I thought that was happiness. Until Caroline began helping Tyler with his company's new expansion in Lyon. She was my older sister, the sophisticated one, fluent in French, perfect posture, the one Mom always said had the good genes. I never imagined she'd use them to steal my husband. The night before it happened, we'd had dinner together, Caroline, Tyler, the kids, and me. She'd brought wine and a bouquet of white lilies, my favorite. "You deserve a break, Lil," she said softly. "You've been so tense lately. Maybe because my husband's flying to France every other week?" I joked, half laughing. Caroline just smiled. Tyler changed the subject. The next morning they were gone. Their clothes, passports, even the family photo from the living room wall gone. There was a single text waiting on my phone. "Don't fight this. The kids are better off here. You were never meant for that life anyway." That life. Like I was some charity case she'd outgrown. I called Mom's lawyer, hoping there was something left from the estate, but he said her accounts were empty. Caroline had handled everything before Mom died, of course she had. I was left with a half-paid mortgage, a box of toys, and the suffocating quiet of a house filled with ghosts. Every night I stared at my children's empty beds, replaying old conversations for hidden clues. Tyler had started speaking softer around her. Caroline had lingered longer at family dinners. I'd seen it all, but never believed it. By the 3rd week, my savings were gone. International lawyers wanted $50,000 just to review the case. I pawned my wedding ring and the bracelet Mom gave me when I turned 16. Still not enough. That's when I decided to sell the house, the one Mom left me, the place I'd sworn never to touch. It felt like cutting out the last piece of her, but I didn't see another choice. I told myself it was just a house, but when I turned the key that fall morning and stepped into the cold air, thick with dust and memories, something inside me shifted. I didn't know it yet, but behind those walls waited something stronger than grief, bigger than betrayal. It wasn't revenge. It was the truth, and it had been buried there for 40 years, waiting for me to find it. October in Minnesota bites like glass. When I opened the door to my mother's old colonial, a wave of cold air rushed out, stale, bitter, and heavy with time. The house had been empty since her funeral 6 months ago. I told myself I was just here to pack and sell, but deep down, I knew I was walking into a mausoleum built from secrets. Every room felt haunted. The kitchen still smelled faintly of her lavender soap. The dining table stood exactly where it always had, covered in a thin film of dust that caught the light like frost. On the hallway wall, pencil marks showed my height from age 4 to 15. Mom had insisted on measuring me every birthday. "Stand tall, Lily," she used to say. "You're meant to reach higher than the rest of us." Now I understood she'd meant something entirely different. The heating had been shut off to save money, so I worked in layers, my breath visible as I climbed the narrow stairs to the attic. Each step groaned beneath my boots. The attic door resisted, like it was protecting something. When it finally creaked open, the air was colder, still thin, metallic, almost alive. Boxes were stacked neatly against every wall, each labeled in Mom's careful handwriting. Christmas, 1987. Lily's school projects, Walter's tools. Walter Fairchild, my father, or so I'd always thought. I found his old wrench set, resting beside a photo of him holding me at age 3. He looked proud, tired, and kind. I wanted to believe that everything in this house was real, that the love in those photos still meant something. But there was something off. Every box was dated after 1984. Nothing older. No wedding photos of Mom and Walter. No baby pictures before I was 2. When I reached to pull another box closer, my foot sank through a soft spot in the floorboard. Damn it, I muttered, kneeling to check the damage. My fingers brushed against something smooth paper. Curiosity prickled my spine. I pried up the plank and found a brown envelope wedged between the joists, sealed with far too much tape. Mom's style, overprotective even in death. I peeled it open carefully. Inside was a folded photograph and a brittle newspaper clipping. The photo showed a woman my mother, but younger, radiant, holding a toddler in her arms. The headline beneath it froze my veins. Local businessman's wife and child disappear, October 15, 1983. I read the article once, twice, 3 times. The child's name leapt off the page. Lily Hayes. Not Fairchild. Hayes. And the man in the article wasn't Walter. It was Randolph Hayes, CEO of a Minneapolis real estate empire. The room spun around me. I clutched the article until my knuckles went white. My mother hadn't just changed towns, she'd changed identities. And I wasn't who I thought I was. I don't remember falling. 1 second, I was kneeling on the attic floor. The next, I was sitting in a cloud of dust, the newspaper clipping trembling in my hands. The name printed there, Lily Hayes, felt heavier than my own heartbeat. The woman in the photo was my mother, there was no doubt. But that name, Randolph Hayes, I'd never heard it before. My supposed father, Walter Fairchild, had been a small-town plumber who died when I was 19. He never once mentioned anything about my mother's life before Duluth. I tore through every box like a thief searching for a confession. Beneath Christmas ornaments and faded report cards, I found a plastic file folder, old IDs, a Canadian birth certificate, even a marriage license between Dorothy Fairchild and Walter. Every document started in 1984. Nothing before that year existed. My hands shook as I pulled out a second photo, the same woman, but with a different haircut and a new smile, standing next to Walter. A family built on a lie. When the attic steps creaked, I flinched. My cousin Dean poked his head through the opening, holding 2 beers. "You up here? It's creepy as hell, Lil." I handed him the article wordlessly. He squinted, reading aloud. Prominent businessman's wife and child disappear. He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes flicking between the photo and me. "That's your mom. Jesus, that is her." I nodded. "And that's me." Dean's mouth fell open. "So, Walter wasn't your dad?" "I don't think so. And whoever this Randolph guy is, he's still alive." He ran a hand through his hair. "You think you were kidnapped?" The words stung. Maybe protected. I don't know. We sat there in silence for a while, the wind howling through the rafters. Dean took a long drink and said quietly, "You should find him. If it were me, I'd want to know." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing Mom's voice, "You're meant to reach higher than the rest of us." Was that her way of warning me, or apologizing for the secret she carried? I went downstairs, opened my laptop, and typed, Randolph Hayes, Minneapolis. The first result nearly stopped my heart. A Forbes article. Randolph Hayes, founder of Hayes Development Group, net worth $350 million. His face stared back at me, older, silver-haired, but unmistakable. My eyes, my jawline. The article ended with a single quote that made me shake. "Every child deserves to be found." I whispered it aloud, the attic suddenly too quiet. Found. Maybe he'd been searching for me all this time. Maybe I wasn't the only one haunted by ghosts. I stared at his corporate website for hours, my cursor hovering over the contact button like it was a detonator. What would I even say? "Hi, I'm the daughter you lost 40 years ago." The thought sounded insane, yet every instinct told me it was true. When dawn broke, I couldn't stand the silence anymore. My fingers dialed the number listed under Head Office, Hayes Development Group. A polished voice answered. "Hayes Development Group, how may I direct your call?" My throat tightened. "This is Lily. Tell Mr. Hayes it's about October 12th, 1983. Silence. Then, "Please hold." A click. And then a deeper, steadier voice. "This is Randolph Hayes." For a second, I couldn't breathe. "Mr. Hayes, my name is Lily. I think I'm your daughter." There was a sharp intake of breath. "My God," he whispered. "After all these years?" His voice trembled, a mixture of disbelief and hope. "Where are you? Are you safe? Is your mother?" "She's gone," I said softly. "She passed away 6 months ago." The line went quiet, so silent I could hear my heartbeat through the receiver. When he spoke again, his voice cracked. "Then come, please, come to Minneapolis. I'll send a car, a plane, whatever you need." "I can drive," I said. I need to know if this is real." 3 hours later, I stood in front of a skyscraper that pierced the clouds, 40 stories of glass, marble, and money. Hayes Development Group gleamed in gold above the entrance. The elevator ride felt endless. I could see my reflection in the mirrored walls, pale, shaking, eyes rimmed red. A woman walking into her own past. When the doors opened, a poised assistant greeted me. "Miss Fairchild?" she asked. I hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, Mr. Hayes is waiting." The office was huge, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the city below, sunlight catching the edges of sleek furniture. Behind the massive oak desk stood a man with silver hair and eyes that mirrored mine. He took one step forward, then another, stopping inches away. "You look just like her," he whispered. "Just like Gwendolyn, not Dorothy." For a moment, I forgot how to speak. Then, quietly I said, "She kept me safe." Tears filled his eyes. "I blamed myself all these years. I thought she ran because of me." "She didn't," I said. "She was running from someone." He frowned. "From who?" I hesitated, my voice barely above a whisper. "You tell me." Randolph exhaled slowly, then turned toward his desk. He picked up a thick folder, its corners worn. "Then you deserve to know everything," he said, sliding it toward me. "The man your mother feared? His name was Vincent Cross." Randolph's hand trembled as he opened the folder. "Vincent Cross," he said quietly, "was my business partner for over a decade, brilliant, persuasive, and rotten to the core." He slid a set of yellowed papers across the desk. Police reports, photos, hospital records. My mother's terrified eyes stared up at me from a grainy black and white image. Finger-shaped bruises marked her wrists. I felt sick. What did he do to her? Randolph's jaw tightened. He was obsessed. He stalked her. When she told me, I thought she was exaggerating. I told her to ignore him, to keep things professional. He laughed bitterly. I was too busy building skyscrapers to see the cracks forming beneath my own home. I turned the page. The next document was a police report dated the 11th of October 1983, the night before she disappeared. Suspect attempted forced entry. Victim and minor child locked themselves in bathroom. Officers arrived. Suspect fled before arrest. Investigation closed, insufficient evidence. "Closed?" I snapped. "He tried to break into your house, and they closed it?" Randolph nodded slowly. "Vincent had friends. He funded campaigns, golfed with judges. The report was buried before I even came home from Tokyo. By the time I returned, Gwen and you were gone." I pressed a hand to my mouth. "She must have known they couldn't protect her. That's why she ran." He nodded. "And I spent 40 years blaming myself, thinking she'd fallen out of love, or worse, that she'd been taken and killed. I hired detectives, paid ransoms, followed lies." His voice broke. "She was protecting you, and I never saw it." I closed the files slowly, my fingers trembling. For the first time, the woman I'd known as my mother made sense. Her paranoia. The locked doors, the way she'd flinch at unexpected knocks. "She must have been terrified," I whispered. "She was brave," Randolph said. "Braver than I ever was." We sat in silence for a long time. Then he looked at me, eyes glistening. "Do you have children, Lily?" "Yes. Ella and Max." My throat tightened. "But they're gone. My sister took them to France with my husband." His expression darkened, like a storm rolling over calm water. "She stole them?" I nodded. "And I can't fight back. Lawyers, travel, paperwork, it's all money I don't have." Randolph leaned forward, his voice hardening. "Then let me help you." "Why?" I asked, choking on disbelief. He gave a small, sad smile. "Because I know what it's like to lose a child, and because this time, I can do something about it." It wasn't a promise, it was a vow. By that evening, Randolph had already called his legal team: 5 attorneys, 2 private investigators, a translator in Paris. Within days, they uncovered everything. Caroline and Tyler had forged custody documents and falsified travel permissions. Caroline had drained Mom's remaining accounts before leaving. Tyler's business trips were bankrolled by a man named Philippe Dumas, a known fraudster in Lyon. Each revelation twisted deeper into me: anger, shame, disbelief. When Randolph placed a comforting hand over mine, his voice was soft but certain. "We'll bring them home, Lily. This time, no one gets away with taking my family." And as I stared at the photo of my mother clutching a 2-year-old me, one thought burned through the fog of grief and fury. The same blood that made me a victim once was about to make me dangerous. 6 months later, Paris smelled like rain and marble. I dreamed of coming here once, back when it meant romance, not revenge. Now I stood outside the Tribunal de Grande Instance, clutching my lawyer's arm as the massive wooden doors swung open. Inside, everything gleamed: polished floors, gold railings, the hum of a dozen languages colliding under the same roof. And at the center of it all, them. Caroline sat across the aisle, her hair perfectly curled, a beige Chanel suit that screamed money she hadn't earned. Tyler was beside her, wearing guilt like an expensive cologne. When she turned and saw me, her smile faltered. "Well," she said under her breath as I passed, "look who learned to fly." I didn't answer. My lawyer, Amélie Fournier, Randolph's top international attorney, placed a hand on my shoulder. "Let her talk," she whispered. "You'll have your turn." And when that turn came, I didn't hold back. Amélie laid out the evidence piece by piece: forged custody papers, wire transfers from my mother's estate, Philippe Dumas' fraudulent accounts linking directly to Caroline. With every page she turned, Caroline's perfect posture shrank a little more. Tyler tried to speak something about confusion and joint parenting, but the judge silenced him. Then Caroline stood, voice trembling with venom. "She's lying, she's unstable. You think she's a victim, but she's just like her mother, a liar who runs away when things get difficult." Her words sliced through the courtroom like glass. I rose before the judge could stop me. "You're right," I said. "Our mother did run. She ran because a man tried to destroy her and no one believed her. Just like you tried to destroy me." Caroline's lips curled. "You always played the victim, Lily. You were the favorite mom's golden child. I was invisible. You got her love, her house, her kids, so I took them. I just evened the score." My voice shook, but I didn't look away. "You didn't even the score. You proved her right. The danger was always closer than we thought." Tyler finally spoke, his voice weak. "Lily, I cut him off. "You made your choice when you packed those passports." For a moment, no one breathed. Even the judge leaned forward slightly. Amélie cleared her throat, sliding the final folder onto the bench. "Your Honor," she said in French-accented English, "we have verified financial records proving embezzlement from Mrs. Fairchild's inheritance, fraudulent travel authorization, and multiple violations of international custody law. The children have expressed fear of the respondents and a wish to return home to their mother." The judge reviewed the papers silently. Caroline's confidence cracked. She reached for Tyler's hand. He pulled it away. When the ruling came, it was swift. Full custody awarded to Mrs. Lily Hayes. Travel for the defendants is restricted pending further investigation. The words echoed through the chamber like thunder. My knees nearly buckled as Ella and Max were led in by a social worker. Ella ran first, sobbing into my coat. "Mommy, I missed you so much." Max clung to my arm. "Aunt Caroline made us call her Mom. She said you didn't want us anymore." My voice broke. "Never, not for a second." I looked past them at Caroline, her perfect hair frayed, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Tyler couldn't even meet her eyes. Randolph stood in the gallery, tall and silent, a steady anchor in the chaos. When our eyes met, he gave a single nod: "It's over." As we stepped out into the rain, Ella lifted her face to the sky. "Are we going home now?" she asked. I smiled through tears. "Yes, baby, we're going home." That night, as the plane lifted off the runway, I glanced at Randolph seated across the aisle, his hand resting gently on Max's shoulder. He caught my gaze and said softly, "You did what your mother couldn't, you fought back." Outside, Paris shimmered beneath the clouds, shrinking into the distance like a fading dream. and for the first time in years, I felt free. Not because justice had been served, but because the ghosts had finally been heard. Back in Minneapolis, the city felt different, brighter, cleaner, almost forgiving. After months of courts, lawyers, and sleepless nights, the sound of my kids' laughter filling a house again was the only therapy I needed. Randolph insisted we stay with him until we settled. His penthouse wasn't just beautiful, it was safe, warm, filled with sunlight and the smell of old books and freshly ground coffee. Ella painted in his office while Max followed him everywhere, fascinated by the model skyscrapers on his shelves. One evening, as I tucked the kids into bed, Randolph appeared in the doorway. "They remind me of you," he said softly. "Curious, stubborn, too smart for their own good." I smiled. "They remind me of Mom." He nodded. "She was extraordinary. I just wish I'd known how afraid she was back then. Maybe I could have saved her." I walked over and took his hand. "She did get saved, just not in the way either of you expected. She found safety, and she gave me a chance to find you." The weeks turned into months. Randolph bought a modest colonial house 3 blocks from his own. "Close enough for Sunday dinners," he said, "but far enough for you to have your own life." He offered money, a lot of it to start fresh. But I refused. "I want to build it myself," I told him. He smiled, proud. "That's what your mother would have said." So he helped me differently by connecting me to people, not handing me checks. With his guidance, I opened a small restoration business, breathing life back into forgotten houses. The first home we finished was one that had been abandoned since 1983. When I walked through it, sunlight cutting through the dust, I thought of Mom hiding in the dark, protecting me. Some nights, when the air turned cold and the city went still, I'd visit her grave with a cup of lavender tea, the same scent that clung to her hands when I was little. "I know why you ran now," I whispered one night. "And I forgive you." The wind rustled through the trees, gentle, almost like an answer. For the first time since that day, my sister took everything from me. I didn't feel broken. I felt rebuilt. Not by money, not by revenge, but by truth and the family who never stopped searching for it. A year later, I found myself back in the same attic where everything had begun. The air was lighter now, no longer heavy with secrets, only memory. The framed newspaper clipping hung on the wall beside a photo of Mom and Randolph on their wedding day. Next to it, another frame. Me, Ella, Max, and Grandpa Randolph smiling in front of our new home. Ella had left a new drawing on the desk. She'd drawn all of us again, but this time, behind our family stood 2 faint silhouettes holding hands. "Who are they, sweetheart?" I asked. She grinned. "Grandma Gwen and Grandpa Walter. I think they're watching us." My throat tightened. I think so too. The attic floor creaked softly under my feet, the same floor that once hid a secret, now holding proof of everything I'd reclaimed. When Randolph came up the stairs a few minutes later, he looked around, smiling. "You kept the place just like it was." "It feels wrong to change it," I said. "This house kept our story safe." He nodded, running a hand over the old wooden beam. "Your mother always believed truth would find its way out. She just never thought it'd take 40 years. I turned to him. "She didn't just save me, Dad. She saved you too. She made sure I'd come back to you." He blinked fast, but a tear slipped anyway. "And now it's my turn to protect you and them." Outside, the wind howled softly through the trees, the same sound that used to terrify me as a child. Now, it felt like home, a whisper instead of a warning. Looking out the attic window, I realized something Mom must have known all along. Family isn't who you're born to. It's who fights for you, who stays when the rest of the world walks away. And though the truth had broken everything once, it had also rebuilt me, piece by piece, name by name, until love, not blood, became the only proof that mattered.